It's almost 30 years ago. But life doesn't change so much.
Stars will be shining my side.
Neither do Cilla's outfits. Tonight we remember the moments that made 1973.
Shell de Twits.
Fashion statements. From outrageous dresses to the Parka coat. The Austin Allegro was new. Mastermind was the game of the year. Our heroes were Bruce Lee, Kojak, and Sunderland Football Club. Remember when Taylor and Burton split? Remember this? I was a lot younger in them days.
Well,
So was Sue Lawley.
When we had somewhere to go, how do you describe this look?
Something tells me something.
You might also remember Cilla sang along to a Tory government. Not for much longer she didn't.
It's gonna happen tonight.
Power cuts.
All the electricity went off and we got candles everywhere. Everybody, I mean, candles, you couldn't get candles.
I remember power cuts being exciting. I mean, my kids now would love it if there was power cuts. Just you imagine it, you get time off school, you get time off work.
As Prime Minister, I want to speak to you about the grave emergency now facing our country. We are asking you to cut down to the absolute minimum the use of electricity for heating and for other purposes in your homes.
But it wasn't just power cuts, there were bombings. An oil crisis. An American president in big trouble.
There can be no whitewash at the White House.
Some might say 1973 was a little bit depressing. But if there's one thing guaranteed to cheer you up when you're down, it's a good tune. And in 1973, we not only sounded the part, we looked the part. Less glum, more glam. In 1973, 3 acts hijacked pop music. There was my band Slade.
Does anyone know the way?
There was Sweet.
We just haven't got a clue what to do. Be my gang, my gang, my gang.
And of course, this man, Gary Glitter.
Be my gang, my gang, my gang. You wanna be in my gang, my gang.
Between us, we spent 25 weeks of 1973 at #1. Never before have so many been appalled by the dress sense of so few. With Slade, it was our guitarist.
Suddenly you'd go out and see Dave Hill with a sort of glitter sun attached to his head and the most ridiculous hairstyle you'd ever seen. It was just great.
You're 20 years old, you've got 500 girls next door, you've got girls all over the country shouting for Dave, shouting for the Slade.
Yeah.
How does it feel?
It feels great, you know. I mean, anybody who says it's not good is an idiot, you know. I think one of the best things about being famous was appearing on Top of the Pops, because you walk on and pans, people are staring at you. I don't know if you remember pans people, but they were serious-looking girls, mate. If they were looking at you, you were definitely #1.
Everyone remembers Dave Hill. I don't know why, but once in a lifetime, someone comes along who you never ever get their face out of your mind. He was just a very strange man. And even though he wore the same clothes as everybody else, you felt he really meant it, and in some way that made him a bit upsetting.
Hairstyles are very important.
He had this terrific fringe I mean, out of all those guys, I think he made one of the biggest impressions, apart from Noddy as well, with the hats.
And I had kind of the high fringe and the long hair before I wore hats and things, so that was very distinctive to me. Well, I think there was some outrageous outfits I wore on television, you know. Christmas tree jobs, you know, because, I mean, how outrageous can you get? I know that when I first learnt about showmanship, I knew that walking on stage and wearing something like a bright top or funny boots or whatever made people smile. And it was all part of being an entertainer, and that's what I was.
Does anyone know the way to be a
So much for Dave Hill. But he wasn't the only glam star who fancy dressed.
Does anyone know the way? There's got to be a way to Blockbuster!
73 was a very good year for us. We had 3 of our biggest hits in England, Blockbuster, Hellraiser, and the other one.
The interesting thing about Sweet was that they were built like hod carriers. When David Bowie put makeup on, he was so elegant and exquisite that it looked appropriate. When Sweet, who had the physique of navvies, put makeup on, it was just so totally disconcerting.
We served a hard apprenticeship. I mean, I've been playing for years now, and it's just beginning to pay off, really.
He's gotta be caught. He's gotta be taught.
Everyone thought I was gay anyway. So I went, OK, you think I'm gay, I'm going to act gay.
Can you get little black moustaches?
Well, if you want us to, but you'll have to warn us.
The Sweet have often come in for a lot of criticism about their stage clothes, but they've always been deliberately outrageous.
I think we did it for our own amusement, because it looked to me like the sillier we got, the sillier we got.
I do remember Steve Priest, and just that he had a very unsettling effect on young girls because he was so pretty, so big and beefy, and then he'd stolen all your makeup.
We were doing Blockbuster on Top of the Pops, and I was sitting in the dressing room, in the makeup room, putting my makeup on, and a voice came from beside me going, you know, you really are putting much too much makeup on. And I looked around, and it was David Bowie. And I went, oh, get real.
That was a game and a half, wasn't it, Fred? Yeah, but we should have had it sewn up by half-time. What we need is a bit more skill up front.
As you can clearly see from this 1973 public information film, the Ford Capri was the car of choice for both wide boys...
Only 10,000 on the clock. Goes like a bomb. Yeah? I'll tell you what, I'll give you a lift home. Thanks.
...and naughty boys.
Only just round the corner. You can't miss it, it's white. That's funny. I could have sworn I left it here. Watch out. There's a thief about.
Dad, on the other hand, made do with this. Born in 1973, the Austin Allegro defines just what it was to be naff in the 70s.
And I love you so.
The Allegro was genteel, economical, a company car for junior management, and so very, very mustard.
There is a fantastic following for the Allegro, and the crystallisation of that is that it's idiosyncratic, it's unusual, it's mad, it's weird, it's British.
At first, the ad sold it as a limousine. And later they filled it with leggy dancing girls. Not that Dad knew anything about dancing girls. He didn't know about kitsch either. None of us did.
Yeah, well, you know, we had these houses that were all, you know, very smooth, and always on the wall, nearly in every single house, was a picture of Tretyakos, the Blue Lady. So you get that blue Oriental lady above the mantelpiece, above the fire or whatever. Everything that people thought of as naff was actually really cool and sensible design.
If you're tired of looking at the same old thing hanging on your wall, it's time you bought a genuine Vimura. You'll love the magnificent colours, the superb texture, the masterful design. And now there's a whole collection of Vimura works that come ready pasted. All you have to do is line it up, stand back and admire. A genuine Vimura, as easy to hang as a painting.
But how cool were our clothes?
Well, you were all dressed up and nowhere to go. If only we had somewhere to go. How do you describe this look we're supposed to be wearing?
Well, if I was having somewhere special to go, I'd wear something very dramatic, like this dress here.
Everyone remembers flares and platforms, but the big flouncy dress look is a horror story which still sends a chill down the spine.
She's got that.
Absolutely.
Oh, but a lovely smell.
Thank you very much.
Roses and jasmine.
I had forgotten absolutely how horrendous those huge, great dresses were. They were not attractive. They looked dreadful. They looked like we were wearing sort of huge, great barrage balloon things.
And they certainly sell an awful lot, as you've heard.
Barrage balloon or not, all the stars fell for the big look. The baggy dress was almost enough to drive you to drink.
Oh, Frank, put me down. Your eyes are watering.
I was asked to be a guest on Morecambe and Wise show.
Miss Michelle Detrice.
And I remember I came on in this Sandra Rhodes beautiful, bright pink, vibrant dress, cut right down to my navel. I came on and Eric said, hello, young son. How are you, Michael, he said.
Michael, how are you? How nice to see you. Are you dressed for the show or an operation?
And I was sort of somewhat deflated.
As for the men, on stage, Mick Jagger glammed it up with the best of them. Off stage, he got voted Best Dressed Man of the Year.
You've got this sort of problem, though. I mean, unless you're really, really...
Just look at the competition, though.
I have a great evening with my family just flicking through, you know, 70s catalogues and looking, one, at the things you could buy and two, at the poses. It's just absolutely hilarious. And men are like stood there and they're fiddling with imaginary cufflinks. And you can see them doing, I don't know what kind of lessons they've had, but they're doing all sorts of unnatural things.
You know you've made it when someone turns you into a board game. Kojak was so famous, he got the toy car as well. A generation of kids cruised the playground mumbling, "Who loves you, baby?" Not easy to do with a lollipop stuck in your gob. And it was all down to some bald Greek geezer with a snazzy waistcoat.
This is Lieutenant Kojak.
It started in 1973 and it was a smash hit, pulling in 63 million viewers in the US. TV cop shows weren't new, but the way Telly Savalas played it was.
He loves you.
How do you account for the tremendous success of the character that you play, Kojak?
All right, well, I think at least I have the explanation. I'm playing one of the guys.
What'd you do, forget your key, Kuchiko?
Kojak was just a cold cop. Kojak, like, reminded us of the detectives that we would run into that was always as cool as the criminal.
Cracker!
Yo! I used to love when Telly would yell, "Crocker! Get in here!" And the relationship that Kojak had with Crocker was that he was going to take care of the young guy.
Telly gave them strict orders that this was not going to be the streets of San Francisco. He said specifically, old cop, young cop. traveling together.
Lieutenant, that's illegal.
Yeah, I know, but look at the rhythm.
He was accused of killing people and all that stuff, and he never did. I did. He did. He fired the gun in the 125 shows that we made. He fired the gun 3 times. I did all the other stuff.
And he had that calm attitude, like I'm gonna bust your ass, and I'm not even gonna run. Kojak doesn't even run. Kojak would just get you, and you know, sucking a lollipop. He's a New York detective, and once Kojak was on your ass, you're going to jail.
Rita was right.
But what did the real police think of Kojak?
I think the cops in New York really related to what Kojak was about.
This guy comes over to me, and he was a real lieutenant. And he says, Jesus, Dan, I like your show, pal, but I'll tell you something. If I ever talk to my captain the way he talks to you, he'd break my goddamn legs.
I'd be walking down the street in New York in the off-season, you know, and I'd have a cab pull up alongside of me and say, Crocker, come on. He'd flip his badge, and we'd go on a run, you know, undercover and stuff.
If a picture paints 1,000 words, then why can't I paint you? The words will never show.
Like all tough New York cops, Kojak was also a bit of a crooner.
I have an album that Telly made, his only album. It's funny.
And when my love for life is running dry, you come and pour.
Well, you know, it was a pleasant voice. I mean, it wasn't Sinatra, you know, but then only Sinatra was Sinatra.
Of you and me against the world.
The singing voice may have been suspect, but Savalas was never short on charm.
We're supposed to be public protectors, man. And to me, that means doing everything. Everything. Everything in our power to keep the citizen butchers like Slade off the streets. Caseloads and movements be damned.
Right on, Lieutenant.
Oh, Telly loved it. He was the ultimate ladies guy. Jeez. Who loves you, baby?
Hey, coochie coo.
And he had a glint in his eye that women were attracted to.
I know a lot of women that didn't like bald men, but they didn't think that he was bald. They thought that he was born that way and never had hair.
But the attraction did finally fade. The series began to slip out of the top 10 rated shows.
Telly didn't want to go out like that. He wanted to go out like the king that it was for 5 years. And he just said, I'm not renewing.
And if the world should stop revolving,
There was talk of a Kojak revival, but it was never to happen.
slowly down to die, I'd spend the end with you.
I rang him up, and all I heard was, yeah, I'm getting a little better day at a time. Thanks for calling, Dan. That was it.
In 1993, at the age of 69, Savalas finally lost his battle with prostate cancer.
He lost a good friend. He lost somebody I grew to love and care about.
Would simply fly.
I am the spirit of dark and light.
High karate. And then one day, he lost it all.
Bolting Parkas, which were all made of Teflon, I think, because you couldn't move. You know, everyone was like an extra in South Park.
If you used to go to school with a really bad Parka on, right, the kids would know straight away, and they'd start going, "Pov, Pov," and like Pov means poverty.
Take a walk on the wild side.
The Parka was nothing if not gimmicky. The 1973 launch of the snorkel head rocked the fashion world.
Sneaky snorkel, we used to call it.
Nobody knew anybody was, because they had these Parkas over their heads, and you used to meet up, and you go, "All right," you just go, "It's me."
Because you'd zip it right up and you'd get your head right inside this kind of snorkel. And it was great because your gran or your mum who saw you after school would say, "Zip it right up to the top," and you'd zip it right up and you'd look forward. But it was always the kind of nerdy boys that wore them, really.
You'd have conversations through the side of your hood, which would be out here with this revolting sort of white stick-on fur around the edge. Yeah, very unattractive.
By 73, the infiltration of the Parka coat into youth culture was complete. Even 6 years later, Fergal Sharkey was still wearing his on TV. The Parka may have been consigned to the Oxfam shop of history, but the smell lingers on.
This is BBC One.
I'd like to run away from you, but if you never found me, I would die.
It was the first royal wedding in colour, Anne and Mark. But in 1973, there was another royal couple who hit the headlines. And the Rocks.
So, today's letter, it's from a guy called Richard, who wants to talk about his love story, which he thinks is a real ending. It was more than 10 years ago that he met Liz.
Here you had a Hollywood movie star who was very beautiful. You had the very handsome but rugged, very masculine but fine actor Richard Burton. And I think that sort of captured the imagination of the public.
Liz had a stormy past. I mean, this wasn't a first-time relationship for her. But Richard was just obsessed with her, and he thought, yeah, I can tame this woman. And for a while, he did tame her.
Because he was a very heavy drinker, and this was a problem. He was getting more and more into alcohol, and eventually it was affecting the marriage.
Liz hated him when he was drinking. They rowed all the time, and they rowed in public. People started to notice that maybe the golden couple weren't quite so golden anymore.
In 1973, when I was writing for The Express, of course, it was a tremendous bombshell that the Burtons were splitting. Elizabeth had decided enough was enough. You know, the newspaper said, right, get on that plane. We need to know what's going on. They flew to Elizabeth in New York, where she was. It was the hot story of the year.
Richard was devastated, especially at the way she went so public about it. Everybody, and I mean everyone, knew the whole sordid truth. So it became a really awful time for both of them. Friends and enemies trawled through every little detail of their private relationship. Even when they tried to patch it up, it seemed like the whole world was watching.
It was almost like a scene from a Greek tragedy. He was taken out in a limo, and he was a bundle of nerves. Meeting her was extraordinary.
And then suddenly, 5 months after they first split, something awful happened. Liz had a cancer scare. They were both stony-faced when they left the hospital, but they left together. And the good news came from the doctors a few days later. As for the rest, well, Richard says he'd like to say it ended happily, but the truth is, it didn't.
It was such a passionate love affair. If Richard had lived. I do believe they would probably have got together again because they never ever stopped loving each other.
And the song? Well, it's one that was pretty much everywhere during the time when Liz was in hospital. Somehow, Richard says, the words caught the mood of how he was feeling then. So, Liz, if you are listening, I think he hopes you feel it too.
Thought I could do without you. Thought I had to look around. But now that I know I need you, I promise that I'll never leave you. Won't you please let me in your arms again. Let me give my love to you once more. Let me love you. Let me love you. Take me in your arms to stay, and I'll never go away again. 'Cause I love you, 'cause I love you.
In 1973, a very clever gentleman with silver hair arrived at every home in Britain. He was accompanied by an attractive lady of Oriental persuasion. Shall we play Mastermind? The big myth about Mastermind was that it had something to do with the TV series Mastermind. It didn't. This was a game made from odd-looking brown plastic and a bunch of coloured pegs. But it wasn't just Game of the Year in 1973. It created an icon out of a hairdresser from Leicester. Bill Woodward was the man on the box.
Well, I was in front of a desk. The pose was to come up here as though I was just logically thinking of something very cunning, so to speak, and mysterious.
The idea was simple. One person sets a code, the other person uses first guesswork, then clues and logic to suss it out. The quicker he does it, the cleverer he is.
Mastermind. Now, that was the toy with that guy on the front with the goatee beard, who looked like a spy. Didn't he have an Oriental woman sitting on his lap or something? Or was that just my fevered imagination?
The Chinese always have an air of mystery, don't they? The Far East, mysterious, the lifestyle and that thing. I think she was there, in a sense, to enhance the mystery of the two of us, if you like.
No, I was rubbish at Mastermind. Still am. I mean, I think I don't know why. I think I did one of those, like a lot of people, you find yourself sometimes trapped in caravans. Do you know what I mean? I won't go into why. We all know these things can happen. And you find they've got like a box of Mastermind in the cupboard. Can't be skill, can it? God, can it?
From the original edition, Mastermind has spawned a whole family of variations. From mini Mastermind to electronic, to kiddie Mastermind, and the sumptuous after-dinner Royale Mastermind. Celebrity fans include Joan Collins and the dashing Omar Sharif.
Any promotional role that we were doing for the firm, of course, I was always Mr. Mastermind. Wherever I went, bring up taxis, or wherever I was taken to, wherever I did a promotion in a store, or wherever I went abroad, I was always Mr. Mastermind. I signed Mr. Mastermind, signed expense sheets of Mr. Mastermind.
Bill Woodward's face has found its way inside 35 million sideboards.
Did he make money from that? I hope he got some kind of royalty. I don't suppose he did, though, really.
He was paid a one-off modest fee.
When you were young and your heart was an open book, you used to say, live and let
1973 was the year Dad brought home a new invention. The pocket calculator was probably the first home computer.
changing world.
Same year, Roger Moore made his first Bond movie. Jane Seymour was the Bond girl who gave him the chance to
Live and let die.
Paul McCartney delivered a corker of a theme tune. Meanwhile, the cops delivered him a summons, busted for growing cannabis.
It was said in court that you had considerable interest in horticulture. Now, this might surprise some of your friends. When did this start?
A couple of years ago, you know.
Where have you been doing your gardening, etc.?
At the farm, you know, yeah. My dad's a keen gardener, you know. I think it's rubbed off.
It was said that those seeds had been sent to you. How did you come to grow them?
Yeah, well, we got a load of seeds, you know, kind of in the post. And we didn't know what they were, you know. We kind of planted them all, and five of them came up illegal, you know.
Welcome to the island of Han.
Bond was mainstream, Bruce Lee was cult, and he took care of business using his bare hand.
Warner Brothers presents Enter the Dragon, the first martial arts film produced by a major Hollywood studio.
Enter the Dragon was a defining moment for both martial arts films and Bruce Lee.
The movie Enter the Dragon was received like an explosion going off. Most of the people didn't know it was coming, and when it landed, it was like a nuclear bomb. It changed the whole face of the industry. It was a tremendous thing.
Bruce Lee was just the man. To me, honestly, dynamically, nobody will ever hit the screen as intense as Bruce Lee. Not even his fighting style, just his facial expressions. He was just like a monster.
Before Enter the Dragon, Lee was already a star in Hong Kong, but he wanted more, and he knew he'd only get it in Hollywood.
In the United States, I think something about the Oriental, the true Oriental should be shown.
Hollywood sure as heck hasn't.
You better believe it, man. I mean, it's always that pigtail and bouncing around, chop, you know, with the eyes slant and all that.
This was no art house movie. It's a classic thriller.
On a mysterious island in the South China Sea, there is a fortress without walls, protected by an invincible army that needs no ordinary weapons.
It wasn't a complicated plot. It wasn't highly sophisticated. It basically said Bruce Lee has been damaged by what happened to his sister and other people in this movie. And now he's going to go to this island and he's going to kick some butt and make up for it.
The plot may have been thin, but the fight scenes showed Lee's genius and turned him into a Hollywood icon.
Certain cats wanted to be so tough, and they just weren't, you know.
I gather you still don't have enough to bust up his operation. We know everything. We can prove nothing.
But he had it all there. It wasn't like he was trying to fight and he wasn't in shape. His body was there, everything was there. And the cool thing about Bruce Lee was he was that good in real life.
He was fast. He had a kind of charisma that was all his own. You know, he was a star. You know, it just shows up on the camera. Either loves you or it doesn't. The camera loved Bruce.
Lee was the first Asian star to make it in Hollywood, but he never knew it. A month before the premiere, he was found dead in a Hong Kong apartment. The conspiracy theories ran riot.
And those theories ranged all over the board. You know, that he had gotten hit in the head too hard, that he'd been poisoned. There was the vibrating palm theory that certain Asian martial artists knew how to touch you and change the vibrations in your body, and by doing so could cause your death at a specific point, which only they could control.
In Hong Kong, 100,000 people attended Lee's funeral. He was just 32.
I think it hit everybody hard. Nobody believed him. He was so young. I mean, it's impossible to think of a kind of life force. He was a great life force.
The shock was incredible, and I think that it reverberated throughout the entire culture.
Remember, he was the leader of the third world,
and he was embraced not just by Asians, but by African Americans, by people of all sorts of minorities who saw in Bruce Lee a hero who represented them.
You still think of yourself Chinese, or do you ever think of yourself as North American?
You know what I want to think of myself? As a human being.
I think Bruce Lee absolutely qualifies for the term icon in the same sense that Marilyn Monroe and James Dean and Elvis Presley and a very small number of others do.
Every small city in America before Enter the Dragon had a church and a beauty parlor. 5 years after Enter the Dragon, every small city in the United States has a church, a beauty parlor, and a karate store. And that's because of Bruce Lee.
He's a phenomenon. He'll live forever.
Take a look at some great sitcoms which started in 1973.
Very expensive.
Trouble is, they've been repeated so much, they don't mean anything anymore. But when did you last see this? Man About the House also started in 73. A story of two girls and a bloke sharing a London flat. It says everything about the time it was made in.
Well, from the time I was about 13, my one idea was to get away from my parents and live in a flat in London. And to me, Man About the House seemed the most beautiful idea of a lifestyle that anybody could possibly have.
Good evening.
I'm not even sure that there'd been that many television series about young people and about the way that young people were living at the time. And to show people of different sexes living together was really quite risque, believe it or not.
Well, that's it. Whatever it takes to turn a man on, I don't have it.
With Richard's character, you never quite knew whether he was going to get off with more Paula, actually, than myself. And there was always that perhaps, of course, he never did, because that would have ruined everything.
Trip. Robin Tripp.
And I think he thought it was going to be like the whole of London, sex life, rock and roll, everything was just going to open its arms to him, and he was going to start living at last.
Yeah, that's it. Oh.
See, different things work for different people.
Oh.
That's the way you catch trout.
Oh.
Maybe he's got some trout blood in him.
And when you think that at this time, huge numbers of young people were having indiscriminate sex and taking mind-altering drugs, the picture that is painted of independent life for a young person in London is so anodyne, but to me at the time it looked lovely, and I really wanted to live in that flat above the Ropers.
You dirty old man!
Because it was being written about young people, you know, we were very into fashion. And, you know, I remember wearing huge platform-heeled boots, you know, about sort of like 3 inches under your toe.
An anchovy paste. You'll need some anchovy paste.
With the fashions as they were, the tight trousers, I had to lie down to do the zips on. And they're doing it all over again now, I think.
I mean, I'm even smiling at the memory of them because they were so much fun to wear.
I just set his mind.
Man About the House went through 6 series, 39 episodes, and a lot of tight trousers. They won't make this kind of show again. They wouldn't know how to.
Told him you were a pup.
Right then, Marilyn. I'm on my way. Remington have had a great idea for Men About Town. The Remington GT2 battery shaver. A few seconds with the GT2 and you're great to be cheek to cheek with. Because like big Remingtons, the GT2 has a gutsy motor, ultra-sharp replaceable blades, and a comfort control for ultra-smoothness. The great little Remington GT2 for smoothness cheek to cheek. Anytime, any place.
Every so often, TV tries to do the big entertainment spectacular. We do it bigger now, all very classy. But the truth is, the audience now will never quite lap it up the way they did then. And they really lapped up Mike Yarwood.
Hello, good evening, and welcome. I can tell you something, I feel a right big Jessie dotted up like that.
Here, Harold took me to see that film last week, Last Tango in Paris.
Television is now just another thing. It's like a fridge in the house. It's just this thing, and it has a function, but it's not a glorious one. It's just a mundane function. And I think programmes like the Mike Yarwood show look totally out of context now, because it's hard to realise that it was an event.
Listen, Dick, I was passing through a lock in my yacht the other day. Suddenly came to the Watergate, and I immediately thought of you.
Yarwood did over 80 shows for the BBC. He never toppled Morecambe and Wise as the nation's favourite.
I don't believe you. Show me your credentials. That's enough. Put them away.
But he was required viewing.
Oh, I kill myself. I really do, yeah.
I think we were more innocent, and I think people liked more innocent humour rather than the hard, vitriolic satire.
Here's a funny story.
I mean, Dennis Healy once said to me, "You've made us all like lovable uncles," you know. And I think that's what made the shows work.
Mike Yarwood was such a great impressionist in that essentially his essential Yarwoodness always shone through whatever impression he was doing. He was like a very good Burgundy. The essential bottom notes of the Burgundy will come through. So of any impression that he'd do, it would be kind of 20% the person he was trying to do, but it'd be 80% Yarwood, you know.
I forgot my key. So I'm climbing in the window.
He didn't do Jacob Bronowski or Moshe Dayan or anybody like that, did he? He knew his material.
Oh, dear. Oh, Mary, come and listen to this.
Well, here I am in me pram in your wake, David.
The wonderful thing about doing Eddie Waring is you didn't really need a script, you know, because he did slur a little bit, and he would say, well, this afternoon should be very good match up here in Unslet. They're playing Halifax and Huldham, and they're all up in a very good seat, and we'll see you back later on, back to Frank Boff, you know.
At the end of every show, he would say, "And this is me."
And this is me.
As if, oh my God, the scales have fallen from our eyes. Do you know, we thought that was Harold Wilson. And then he would usually sing.
These guys are gonna clear up. Put on a happy face.
And Mike, you could tell, always thought really underneath it all, he could have been a good Jack Jones or a good Tony Bennett.
Happy face.
They may well mock, but Yarwood at his peak was watched by over 20 million viewers. And that's serious light entertainment.
You decided to smile.
The FA Cup final has rarely witnessed scenes like these. A classic goal, a superb save, and Sunderland had destroyed the mighty Leeds. But Wembley was to witness a second football drama that year. England against Poland. The prize, a place in the 1974 World Cup finals. It was them or us.
For England not to qualify for the World Cup finals was unthinkable.
At the heart of the English defence was a man with an impossible job. Norman Hunter had replaced '66 World Cup hero Bobby Moore.
And I remember thinking that we were never going to lose it. You know, I thought with the crowd behind us playing at Wembley, all we had to do was win.
Manager Alf Ramsey was also part of football's royal family, but 7 years after winning the World Cup, the knives were out.
and I've got a nail here in my hand, and I wanted to go in the Polish coffin. Or perhaps it could go in Sir Alf's.
Clough wanted the job, but he never got it. I wish he had, in a way, because I think he would have been a great England manager.
A fella said to me the other day, can you tell me a football joke? I said, yes, Jimmy Hill. Because he thought I was going to say Sir Alf, but he's beyond a joke.
But it wasn't only Sir Alf that was under pressure. As the game began, Poland was swamped.
Win or bust. The England team and their...
I can't remember a match when there were so many near things.
Shannon, off the line!
I've never played in a more one-sided game in my life.
Tomaszewski, I remember him, the goalkeeper. Brian Clough described as a clown, some clown.
Bell! Great stop! Shannon!
He had an outstanding match.
The saves he made were absolutely unbelievable.
Clark! Not a good save!
I mean, England were constantly on the attack, but just couldn't finish.
Now here's Jimmers! And Curry!
We had so many chances that game.
Hughes, Curry. Why did he punch? Here's Shannon. Inside netting.
Then England hit self-destruct.
Hunter's got to make that. And he's lost it. Kojak is inside McFarlane. Hughes trying to get back goal side. Damaski coming on square number 10. And it's there. Hunter had to make that challenge and he didn't succeed.
I said it was my fault, and I still believe it was. That's probably one of the worst feelings I've ever had on a football field. I wish Wembley could have opened up a great big hole. That tackle and mine.
And then we've got ourselves back in it again.
And he's made it!
But to equalise wasn't good enough. England needed to win.
Hunter again, right foot! They move into injury and stoppage time. And off the line! Cilla checking his watch. And the final whistle, and England are out of the World Cup.
At the end, I mean, people were stunned by it.
Involved in any of the actions, that other clown at the other end was.
Yeah, but you keep calling him... Hey, Brian, you keep calling him a clown, but in fact, that fellow has made some fantastic saves, and he's kept him...
I think that Peter Shilton should have stopped that, and I don't think that the other goalkeeper is a clown, and I think that that's very adverse comment, Brian.
With that defeat, the feeling went from the stadium to the country. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And it was a feeling of disbelief and who was responsible. Ultimately, of course, it's always the manager who's responsible. And Sir Alf Ramsey lost the job, probably wrongly.
Following meetings, a unanimous recommendation was submitted to the Executive Committee that Sir Alf Ramsey should be replaced as the England team manager.
It was a desperate, desperate shame that the FA, in their wisdom, and we know what FA stands for.
The Football Association wishes at this time to record its deep appreciation of all that Sir Alf has accomplished.
Above all, that upset me more than anything, that Alf lost his job.
And the debt owed to him by English football for his unbending loyalty and dedication and the high level of integrity he has brought to world football.
It should never have been allowed to happen because Sir Alf was the greatest English manager of all time.
Can I hold it for a second?
Yes. We've all seen Uri Geller bend cutlery, but in 1973 it was new.
Look, it's like it's becoming like plastic.
On the David Dimbleby show, one cold November night, an entire nation was gobsmacked.
That show made Uri Geller. The story of this televised program, which was on the BBC, flashed worldwide.
You can't possibly exaggerate how big Uri Geller was at this time. It was immense. The Dimbleby show set off a furore. He was on every newspaper front page every day.
Does anybody have a broken watch here? Oh, wait, it's moving. It's moving.
It is moving.
It's working.
David, my watch is
stopped. I wonder who's...
Straight after the Dimbleby show came Blue Peter.
Wait,
there it is. It's on the deck. Where is it?
I don't know what to say.
There is nothing to say.
There were hundreds of imitators who, you know, came on television and did what I do, but they used trickery, they used magic.
What he did, as far as I know, he massaged it very gently.
With his finger on top.
Now, I'm not going to guarantee to do any breaking or anything like this.
Well, I suppose I was trying to show that the things that Geller did could be done by magicians.
Well, it's going, you know.
Yeah.
Is that Ben?
We're getting a Ben.
Magicians can duplicate this. I mean, if they sleight of hand a fork, a broken fork, or they... I don't know what.
I got a line down and I couldn't get the cross line.
That's very good, Ali.
Amazing.
Very good.
I just felt that they really wanted me to fail because they really believed in Uri Geller.
Ben! Ben!
Whether psychic or magician, the young Israeli really started something.
We all come together. Ready? Bend! 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 Carry on.
The world and his wife soon found that they too could do a Geller.
Come on!
Fantastic.
As for Uri, he loved it.
This is England. You know, when a policeman catches me, I bend something, his keys or his badge. He has to let me go.
I was on a huge ego trip. I was out to make Uri Geller.
130, 140. That's fast.
I was ruthless. I was absolutely, totally materialistic. I ignored my friends, my family. It was only Geller, Geller, Geller.
Come here, look. Melt.
Geller was soon itching to impress the world with his new skills. He wrote books, even cut a record.
The red, the day had come, the day now here, the day I knew the end.
The problem is that all Uri wanted to be was a rock star. He was just a simple street lad from Tel Aviv who either found or invented this ability, depending on which view you take of him.
He's been popularised enough, hasn't he?
The media has exploited him very well.
I even went through a period of bulimia. I just couldn't control the success, the jet setting, the people I was meeting.
He suffered tremendously. I think he had what would probably call breakdowns.
Geller's still famous, but not like he was. Not like back then.
1973 was the peak of his life. It was his zenith. And I think he's always on a mission to kind of recreate 1973. Like I suppose a lot of us are, really.
Well, we're nearly finished, but there was a great ending to 1973. Merry Christmas, everybody. Who could forget it? And you never